I'm Laura Geis. Welcome back to the God Success Secrets video series. This is week number 19, and today's success secret says, humble yourself. Now, not very long ago, my husband and I were invited on what I thought was going to be a camping trip. My husband owns his own business. I think I've told you that before. And one thing he sells in his stores is furniture. And his furniture vendor invited us on a tour of their factories, which aren't too far from our home in Indiana. So when we received the invitation, it said, come and you can stay at our cabin. So when I hear the word cabin, I'm thinking of when I was in Girl Scouts and we used to stay in these cabins that had no facilities. I remember we all had to pack a coffee can, and that was our little makeshift toilet while we were at camp. So I'm packing my suitcase to stay in this cabin, and I throw in a roll of toilet tissue because I have no idea what to expect. I'm going to stay in this cabin out in the woods somewhere. Well, when we arrived at this cabin, I figured out I needn't have worried. This cabin was huge. It was full of like really nice overstuffed leather furniture and a big screen TV with all the cable channels. The kitchen was fully stocked, several master suites, lots of facilities, plenty to go around. I didn't have anything to worry about. Well, while we were on this trip, what would happen is a guy from the company came in the morning and he took us on a tour of one of the factories, and then in the evening we'd go back to the cabin and they had someone bring in a meal for us for dinner. We ate really well on this trip. And then they would clean up all the mess and leave, and then the next morning the man would come back with a little tour bus and take us to another factory. And a couple days into this trip, I was talking to the guy who was taking us on all these tours, and he told me that he is the grandson of the owner of this huge company. I mean, he stands to inherit this big furniture company. And here I thought he was just some tour guide that the company had hired because he never let on who he was. And then I found out that this nice woman who had been, cleaning up our breakfast dishes and cleaning up our dinner dishes, one day I arrived at a factory and there she was, and they said, well, here's so-and-so, the vice president. She's going to take you through this factory today. Well, she's one of the vice presidents in the company. She's actually the daughter of the owner of the company. And here she was washing dishes for us. And I thought, wow, what a humble group of people that they didn't introduce themselves and tell us what their titles were, and it was just all about getting to know us, and whatever we needed, they were there to serve. And I thought it was a great example of being humble. So our verse today is from Proverbs chapter 18 verse 12, and it says, before his downfall a man's heart is proud, but humility comes before honor. Now, how do you know if you have a problem with humility? I'm going to ask you to think about the last conversation you had with someone. Maybe you were at one of your kids' soccer games, or maybe you were meeting someone at a business luncheon, or wherever you talk to people. Think about that last conversation you had, and was that conversation more about you or more about the person you were talking to? Did you use the word I quite a bit? Or did you use the word you quite a bit? Were you making lots of statements telling about yourself, or were you asking lots of questions? See, a very humble person would be more interested in finding out about the person they're talking to. So that's one really quick test to tell if you might have a problem with humility. And I'll tell you, who are the people that you really enjoy spending time with? It's those people who take the time to learn your name and ask you questions, and they're interested about what you've been doing since the last time you saw them. Those are the people you really want to be around. So whether it's a family member or you're in a business meeting or whatever, make the conversation all about the other person and you will have more success. So work less to impress and work harder at learning more about other people. And that's one way that you can practice humility. So what are we going to do in our journals this week? Okay, think back to that last conversation you remember having with someone. And think about some of the things you did right and what made it go well, and what were some of the things that you did wrong. And how were you showing humility, and how was maybe some pride sneaking through. And then list out what could you have done differently to make the conversation all about the other person and learning how to serve the other person. So get out your journal, think about that last conversation, and how can you make your next conversation a more humble experience for the person you're talking to. And that will set you on the road to success. I'll see you next time.